Hey guys, it's Crystal. Both of the photos came out to be tied, which is, understandable. But I chose the first one just because I like the way that I had cropped it in camera rather than cropping it afterwards. But I'll still crop it anyways because, you have to. So I edit in CS6. And that's something that I always edit in. Sometimes I use Capture One for minimal things, but the majority of the time I do everything in Photoshop because it's easier for me. I do work with a graphics tablet. I have I don't know if I'm saying it right, but a Huron 610 Pro, something like that. I used to have a Wacom one, but I got rid of it because it broke. Long story about that. Um, and there are many different ways to edit things. There's many different ways to color things. I'm just gonna give you guys a glimpse on how I edit. Now, when I do frequency separation, dodge and burn, I usually use my Retouching Academy panel because it's easier, so I don't have to go through all the steps, but I can show you how to do it. Uh, but this is a great investment if you want to do it because it's just so much easier. Okay, so I have everything where you can browse in ManyBridge because I open everything in Camera Raw to process it a little bit like this. Now this is raw, sort of. It comes out raw, but not raw, I guess you could say. Um, so what I'm going to do is first open it without any adjustments to it. That way I have the very base down and I can go back and forth. Now I open it as a smart object. Smart objects, you can go back to Camera Raw or apply smart filters and stuff like that and go back and change them. And what I do is, after I'm done with this, you know, editing the basics of it, I will radicize it or whatever you call it and like combine all the layers and stuff like that and whatever because I want to go back and forth. Like you can see how like the whites and the highlights and stuff like that are really a little bit blown out. It was an overcast day when I shot this. This is actually shot on Thanksgiving. um, you know, the best way to start editing is to actually start in camera. On this day, I was shooting with a Sigma 85, and it was just really quick because this is my niece, and she was at my house for Thanksgiving, and it was like, I don't know, 10 minutes that they were there. So I quickly shot this. I didn't have a reflector. We just moved to Texas, so it was kind of just quick. But if you're lighting outside in overcast skies, the lighting's not going to be that bad. Um, so the shadows are going to wrap around the face and everything like that. It's not going to be harsh on their face, which is a good thing. Overcast skies is great, but then the sky looks terrible. Um, so what you can do is, add a speed light, bring down the exposure drastically for, the ambient lighting, and then bump up with a speed light the lighting so it stands out. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to shoot natural light, you can always use a reflector. Here, I didn't. Alright, so I'm going to open this as this right now. And now you can see that it is a smart object. Um, what I like to do is always create a new smart object via copy. You When you do that, you're creating a new copy of it. You're not actually creating a duplicate. When you open up or create a duplicate, it will say you open here, I'll show you. Okay. So I'll create a duplicate. Okay. Same thing. Now if I were to go into this, into the smart object and go back into camera raw with it, and I say I want to change the exposure and go way down, it will change both of them. Not something you want to do. So what you want to do is create a new smart object via copy, and that way you can go into Camera Raw or whatever smart filters that you use. And sorry, I'm recording this at like 4 o'clock in the morning. uh, and you can go in and say, do the exposure thing again, just to show. it'll do that without interfering with the base one. So that's how I do it all the time. Now what you're gonna do, for this photo, uh, the highlights are, the whites are a little bit overexposed for my taste. So I will bring those down just a little bit. Probably right about there. Bring the highlights down just a little bit. Now this is going to mess with her. This will mess with the other shadows and everything else and like that, stuff like that. What I'm going to do, I like it like this. This is fine. I'm going to apply it, and then I'm going to go down here to mask, and I'm going to mask it in. And then what I do is I press Control and I, and it inverts the mask when you're actually on the mask. Then I go up and pick a nice big soft brush. Not that small, probably about 1500. My opacity is at 12. Now I usually do it from 50 to 100 for something like this. So I'm going to do it about 49 right now. And I will mask it in. You want it on white. You want to go over it. It doesn't matter about all the greens and stuff like that. And you use your bracket keys, which are next to P, to increase and decrease the size. I don't know what it is on Mac. I have never edited with a Mac. So I think a lot of it is like when you press Control, like I, it would be Command I. Or you can go and I think it's here, and you go to invert, yeah. So image adjustments and then invert. You'd want to do that on the mask. So it just brought it down a little bit. Now if I want to, I can go back into the Smart Object, or Camera Raw, excuse me, and bring the exposure down just a little bit more. Maybe bring the highlights down a little bit more in the whites, and see if that's what I like. And it's gonna be based on what you like. See, now you can see a little bit of the cloud, like right here, a little bit of the sky, not too much. And yeah, that's how I do that kind of stuff. Now, you can also change like the colors and stuff like that with it too when you're editing in Photoshop and then you open it up in Camera Raw. You can go in and alter the colors. That is one way to add colors to it or change the colors. Let's see, I forget where it is. Here, you can change the saturation and hue and stuff like that. So the greens, you can make it a little bit more red or a little more yellow. Yeah, a little more yellow or more green. Same with the aquas and stuff like that. And the reds, which you can see a little bit in her. That's a big thing right now, or right there. But I don't do that. So I'm okay with this, right? I'm gonna close my mini bridge so it's not in the way. Now, right now, for me, it's okay. It's a base to start out with. Yours might be different. It might be overexposed. It might be underexposed. And you're going to want to go in the Camera Raw if you use Camera Raw and adjust it. Now, you can, say, I'll do another one. Say that you have, her face is way overexposed. Like, there are some, it's a little bit right there on her nose that bothers me a tad, but not too much. Or the white balance is off on her skin, her hair, her clothing, something like that. You can go in and do that too. And you can change that and keep masking in everything that you want, like changing the white balance. But I had it was, for me, it's okay. We're gonna mess with it anyways. Now, with all this, get rid of that. I am perfectly fine with this. So I am going to flatten the image, and that will get rid of the smart. filters and everything and masks and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to work on frequency separation. There are actions that you can get that do what the RA one does. You can get the RA panel, and I think it's like, I don't know, 20 or 30 bucks or something like that. And every time that they update it, you'll get it. You get the new update and stuff like that. So it helps tremendously, especially if you're working with 8-bit and 16-bit ones. Now, I will do 16-bit because that is what I'm working in, and just show you what it looks like. Okay, you have your texture layer, which is like, it pulls out all the textures from the image and stuff like that. It is a high pass filter layer, and that is what you would go in and use the healing brush on to replace the texture in certain spots. Like, I will show, for instance, there are many different ways that people will do it. Some people use spot healing, some people do the patch tool. I don't like it because it can halo. Some people do content aware. I personally use the healing brush all the time when I do frequency separation. Like right here. With the high pass, or the high frequency texture layer, you'd want to go in with your healing brush and go to a piece of skin that is similar in texture as the one that you're going to replace. Like right here. Great. So I'd press Alt on the good skin, go over it a little bit. Now if I were to go like here on her lip and pull from that and try to do it right there, now you're going to get the textures of the lip on her face, and that's not something you want to do. Now this one is tonal correction. You can correct, like, if it's too red and stuff like that, you can paint over it. I normally don't even use that. With the low frequency one, the colors and tones, this is a Gaussian blur over the whole entire image. And that is going to be based on if you're editing in 8-bit or 16-bit, if you're editing a smaller photo or a larger photo. With this, you can see that all the fine lines and everything, all the texture is gone, so you're left with nothing but the color. In this layer, say you see this red spot right here, you can too use the healing brush and pick a color similar to it and go over it, and it'll be gone. And you can see the difference. Well, let's see, get rid of that texture too. So now you can see it's gone. It's gone now. So it works out great. So, okay, to do it on your own, what you're going to want to do is duplicate your background layer twice. Okay? And then you can hold down or control, click both of them, and then hold down shift and click on the folder key at the bottom. Name that to frequency separation, or FS. Now, the top image, we're going to name that texture. Okay? The bottom, tonal. Okay. Uncheck the texture layer so you can't see it. Now what you're going to do with this one, you're going to go into Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and you'll start out whatever, your radius. You're going to want to, based on if you're editing in 8-bit, 16-bit, and the size of your image, change the radius to where you get rid of those fine lines while retaining still the color and stuff like that, the tones. Where I had it with 6.4 was actually great to use. So you can still see, the details on her face and stuff like that, all the tones, even her freckles and stuff like that, which is good. So now you'd go that, click OK. Now, for the texture layer, what you're going to want to do is go to Image. You're going to go to Apply Image. Okay. This is solely for 16-bit. I never edit in 8-bit, so I'll have to look that up and send it. Post it and stuff like that. Um, you're going to want to select the tonal layer. Okay. You're going to want to, for the blending, do it as add. The scale will be 2. Okay. That's what you want. And you want to invert it. So it look like this. So it would look like a high pass filter. So it's got a lot of haloing. You can see all the textures and stuff like that. And what you're going to want to do for the blending mode is do linear light. Okay. So now you can really see like even the hairs on her face. The really fine ones that you couldn't see before. Then you're going to check back on the tonal layer, and then as the one for the Retouching Academy one, you can do the same thing. So you'd go on the texture layer if you want to get rid of texture. Okay. Use a healing brush. um, and when you are healing, something like this, you don't want to have the brush size be like this or too small where it's really tiny. You can if you're doing fine details like around her nose and stuff like that, or hair work. Generally, when you're doing something like this, you can get away with like this size. That's just bigger than the actual issues with the skin and stuff like that. Now, with patching and stuff like that, like I said, I don't recommend it. With spot healing, I don't recommend it because it will pull from certain areas that you might not want. And that's not something everybody wants or needs. Okay, so I am going to use my one that I made. And I'm going to edit all her skin. Okay, which is not too much. um, with this too, say you want to get rid of some hairs, there are some tricky spots. You can go in and pull around. Now, what I do is I zigzag. And then for colors, you're going to want to zigzag too. I didn't get all the texture down there. Now, I don't mind her flyaways. Now, with tonal too, okay, that is the only time that I actually might use patch, is to go around and pull it to a color that will suit it and stuff like that and keep playing around with it. But normally I don't get rid of it because I'm not going to edit her hair. I like flyaways like this. It's natural. Um, Julia Kosminko, McKim, it's very hard for me to say her name. I think that's how you say it. She is an amazing retoucher. She is, I think, one of the founders of Retouching Academy. Um, the whole point, she said, to retouch is not to make the person look plastic. It is to retain the skin texture. The beauty is in the flaws, but you want to have a gorgeous skin. So you don't want to go in and blur the heck out of somebody's face. You want to keep that skin texture. There's nothing wrong with having pores. There is a problem if you're making the person look like Barbie. It looks amateurish, and it's just something that you don't want to do. Now, there are a few ways that you can retouch skin. You can do frequency separation, which a lot of people do. You can go in and locally dodge and burn areas. Like, say there's a big pimple and the top of it is um, very shiny, so it's, a highlight. And then you see the bottom part, that's a shadow. You can go in with dodge and burn and burn the top and dodge the bottom so it's an equal tone. And that will do the same thing. It's just more tedious. I just dodge and burn like the skin to add highlights and shadows and stuff like that to bring out finer details, emphasize certain things, add detail to the hair or the face and stuff like that, to the makeup, to the eyes. So, yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to do all this, her skin, and then I will get back to you. And you can watch me. Another good thing I will add while I pause is if at the beginning that you start to edit what you want to do, I don't do this, but it's a great way to see the problem areas and remember where the problem areas are, is to go in with a new layer above everything and just mark where they are. Say here, here, here. That way that you know exactly where everything is and you don't forget. Me, I just go over, go back, go over, go back, and stuff like that. So you see the whole areas and stuff like that, and you can keep track of what you've done, what you haven't done. You don't lose where you've done texture and tonal and stuff like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a moment to say something. She does not have eye bags like I do or older women do. So editing her eye bag area is not something I would do. For an older woman, I would create a completely different frequency separation there for her eye bags. And I would go in and remove as much as I could, you know, even if it looked outlandish. And then I would lower the opacity drastically. So you want to retain some of it, but not, where it just looks like. I'll see if I can do it with her. A big, like, nothing there. That just looks so unnatural. Um, that's one thing to remember. And for men, generally, you don't want to retouch too much for dudes or guys, whatever, because they're guys. um, like if they have way too many wrinkles and stuff like that, and you do want to get rid of them, you can, but it's not so drastic for men as it is for women. Women are more concerned with, how their skin looks and stuff like that, especially in photos. So if you have like an older lady that does not like it, that's fine. If you have an older gentleman, some guys look totally okay with that, and they don't mind it anyways. Now, with women or men that have a lot of acne, it's going to be very hard to edit the skin texture, um, because you might not have, you know, enough skin texture to pull from to create that, flawless looking skin. Like her, she is gorgeous. She doesn't have that much skin problems. She's a teenager, so it's just here and there. With, you know, a model or, whatever, you can use something called uh, portraiture to help with it after you've done the basic frequency separation and stuff like that. And you can go in and mask in that portraiture layer over the areas if you need to. You don't want to, again, make it look plastic. And that one, I mean, it, let's see, I will actually Control Shift Alt E will create a stamp of it. I have it just in case sometimes for things. Now, this, oh god, okay, you'll see, look at that. Oh my goodness. Flawless, perfect skin. You can see her pores and everything. Um, if you need to, you can. You just want to fill it a little bit, in certain parts, like, say her chin, her chin's a little bit too, eh, you know, what you'd want to do is, anywhere from 19 to 70, depending. Or you can go 100%, fill it in, and then bring that opacity down to nothing, and then just slowly bring it in to see. Now, with models that do have imperfect skin, or clients that have imperfect skin, this works out great. But you don't want to do the whole face like this. It's just like it will, eventually make the model look like she is plastic, and that's not something anybody wants. Now I'm going to do all the textures as much as I want, because usually, I don't, with her, when I did this, I didn't do too much, because I do like to retain some of the naturalness of it. Now, if you're doing something like a beauty campaign, um, you're going to want to spend a considerable amount of time on it. Um, you'll pixel peep and stuff like that, and that's what they want. If you're doing like beauty for makeup and stuff like that, lipstick, you're gonna want to sit there and spend a few hours on it. Now, if you're doing multiple, you're doing a photo session for a client, you know, that's headshots and stuff like that. You can just do it like this, minimal, and then be done with it. Maybe use the portraiture to get rid of things. Now this, with tones, you can also get rid of shadows and highlights if you need to. I would recommend being very careful about it. Hmm. So I will go in with this, with portraiture, and I'll bring that opacity way down, about 29. And I'll lightly add it to certain areas. Maybe around her eye bags, not too bad. And the way I'm zooming, I'm holding down Alt key. I do not know what that is for Mac. Um, you can just go in and like zoom with the zoom thing, the magnifying glass. You can also have a window in here for it too. I don't ever use it. I'm used to doing Alt. I'm doing a lot of things with the keyboard. So, yeah. Um, okay, so it doesn't look bad right now. You know, I'm fine with it. Maybe this. I know that's one of her freckles, but it's kind of dark. Yep. So you can, you know, if you're sitting here messing with frequency separation, you can go back and forth with the texture and the tonal uh, to get rid of things at the same time. If you don't want to just do texture first, like I do, and then tonal, it makes it easier, I guess. I don't know if I like that one. Yeah, it's okay. She's got a lot of freckles, just like me. Okay, so actually, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see just a little bit of the difference. You can hold down Alt and go to the background file, or picture, whatever, and you can see what difference is. I mean, it's not too much. And you can mess around if it's not exactly what you want. Go back in, like right there, it was bothering me a little bit. And now, if you don't want it to be 100%, you can always bring the opacity down and it'll lessen it, you know? But then it kind of looks weird. I don't know. I don't normally do that. Or you can add a mask to the whole folder and get rid of everything if you wanted to, if you want to mask it out. Okay, so I am actually happy with that, with her skin and everything like that. Now, I am going to actually control and then shift and then do that. I'm going to name that retouching. Okay, now that's done. Okay, so the color tones, there are so many different ways that you can do it. So many different ways. I normally use selective coloring layers. I will sometimes use color lookup, channel mixer, color balance. I will not use hue and saturation unless I'm trying to negate a color. Like there was a model that I had when I lived in Colorado, and we shot in February. Um, so it was about 30, 40 degrees outside, and it had just snowed, and his nose was red as Rudolph, and his ears were too. So to combat that, what I would do, or what I did rather, I'll try her for example. She's got a little bit of redness right here, you know. Is I would create a hue and saturation layer. Okay. I would select the reds channel or the reds color. I would take the eyedropper and go over where it is. Now, it will pick a part in spectrum that is close to that color. And there'll be some that goes cooler, warmer, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what you're gonna do is increase the saturation like crazy. Oh, let me actually pull it up. um, it will be crazy looking. Now, what you can do with these little itty bitty things, these little brackets, is bring them closer so that it brings it more towards the color that you're looking for. That is, like, let's see, the areas that are something that you don't want. Just like that. Okay. Double click on saturation, you'll get rid of it. Now you can go in and you can see lightly, like if I went back to 0 or ish, or whatever, and brought it down, saturation all the way down, you can see right there that the saturation of that color is gone. You can also increase the saturation if it's not saturated enough. You can change the hue, like if it's too magenta or cool or whatever, to red, you can change it. Like that made it a little bit more yellow, closer to her skin tone. Now you can do that and then Control I the mask and then just go in and mask it in. I'm not going to do that. But that helps tremendously if, you know, say, because this photo doesn't have it, um, you are shooting on grass, you know, during the daytime with, bright, harsh sunlight. What the sun is going to do and what the grass is going to do, the sun is going to shine down on the grass and the grass is going to cause a reflective color. There's going to be a green color cast on her clothes, and everything. You can go in and select the green areas and try to get rid of them by using a hue and saturation layer. Um, you know, like say she's got a green cast on her face, or say she's wearing a red top and there's some color cast on her cheek because of that top. You can go in and alter it where you can match the tones to fit perfectly with her skin. And that makes it so much easier. Something like Expo Disc, or setting the white balance using your gray card and stuff like that. It helps, you know, but there are still those certain instances where it can still happen. Sorry, I'm sick. Okay, so color grading. I am not going to get into that yet. I am going to actually go in and do some dodge and burn. Okay, I'll explain it with the curves that for Retouching Academy because it makes it easier for me. Um, with panel, you'll be able to get a visual aid with it that shows you just in black and white. You can do this with a simple um, black and white layer like that you can see, because black and white gets rid of everything, so you just see color, or not color, you see light. Um, so you just use that, like, for this, there is a curves layer. Now you can see there there's down in the shadows, and then highlights, and then a midpoint. For this is the dodge curve. This will add light. I will do 100% to the subject. Okay. The burn will add shadows. Okay. And in black and white, you will just see light. You will not see color. You take it off, you'll see that. So it's kind of interesting. I don't use the visual aid. Okay. You can if you want to. Especially if you're going to do a black and white photo, it actually helps a lot. So what I do, I'll always start out with dodge. My opacity will always be 20 and under. And I will use a bigger brush on certain areas and then change the size depending on what I'm highlighting or bringing light to, like her brow bone. Too much. So I'll go in and, or too big rather. So I'll go in with a smaller one and bring it in like this. And just keep, because I always keep my fingers on the bracket keys when I'm doing it. Add a little bit there. Now, women know this about contouring. Basically, what you're going to want to do for a woman's face or for a man's face is contour the face where there's highlights and shadows and stuff like that. Generally, the highlights will be here. Oh, make that brighter. Here. Okay. Down the nose. Around the lip area, like here. Okay. Down the lips a little bit. Um, you'll do highlights here. You'll always dodge or highlight here. Below the cheek, right here. The chin area. Above the brow bone. Sometimes, it depends on how you want to do it. I always do. Forehead size 2. Bright is going to make it bigger. Dark is going to make it smaller. And then blue will be your burning or your contouring. So you do like right here, down the nose, under the nose, there, there, there. If you could see the bottom of the chin, you would do it right there too. Around the forehead, like that. And then it'll bring out the bone structure of your model and stuff like that. The same thing can be said with dodging and burning. And I'm going to go through all of that and I'll show you. Now, with dodging and burning, you can dodge darks or lights to bring out more detail. When I do the eyes, you'll get to see that too. So I'm going to mess around with this now. Oh, goodness. Way too high of an opacity. It says at 22, you can see right there a little bit more. And around the eyes, I will always do around here, always around here, like this. Because it just, when you have a lighter corner of the eyes, it makes them pop. It makes them look bigger, just like at the bottom. It makes them look bigger. And with dodging and burning, you actually can make, like, just as contouring is, you can make things smaller or bigger, depending on what you do. Now, this is just a little bit of what I do. I will go in and change the opacity afterwards, but this is just the basics. Now with burning, switch burning, 22 opacity is going to be really high, so you're going to want to do it half that at least. And you can always add more. Taking away is more of a pain than adding. And I will dodge the makeup area. Always. That's just how I like it. I will dodge the eyebrows. Or burn the eyebrows. I'll dodge and burn the makeup. And the eyebrows. Because, like, she's got nice, really hooded eyes, so it looks good. Gives her that smoky look. And now, depending on your lighting situation, your dodging and burning is going to look completely different. It's going to be completely different. Dodging and burning is not going to save a shot that has poor lighting. Um, you can mask it in, like at the beginning, like I showed with the highlighting of the background and stuff like that. You can mask it in, but it just doesn't look right. I mean, the key to a successful photo is actually getting it right in camera before editing it. Too much. Actually, I'm gonna toss it in there. Now I will go back and forth between dodging and burning over her face just because that's how I do it. I mean, it makes it easier because you see it differently when you add new things. But generally, you want to get the gist of it down, you know, just the basics. And then you can pull out and see what else needs to be done. And with hair, I will do the same thing around her hair to add more highlights like there, darken the hair, but that would be a completely different dodging and burning folder. You don't want to, like, with face, you want your own folder for that. For skin of, say, the collarbone, you know, the chest, shoulders, you want another folder for that. For clothes, you can do dodging and burning for the clothes. And you want all separate folders because you don't know how much. Like, this one would be, if I lowered the opacity for this, it would do it for everything. And you don't want to do that, you know, for everything. If you want, like, the collar looking more poppy and stuff like that. And her clothes not as, or a little bit more subtle. So you can see the difference. Just dodging and burning a little bit does. Now, this is just quick. This is not, I mean, whenever I edited this, I spent a little bit more time on it. You want to go in and zoom out further just to see too what it looks like, you know. Because when people are going to look at it, they're going to also look at, you know, not just what you're showing full size, but also the thumbnail too. Okay. I know it doesn't look much, but that changed a little bit. Now you can see before and after just a little bit. There you go. Okay. Now, I will do another dodge and burn layer for her hair. The clothes, no, she's wearing all black. I mean, I could go in and add highlights to all the little creases and stuff like that and on her shoulders, but it's pointless because it's not that shiny of a fabric. For the one I did with Sam with the blue fabric, the Virgin Mary one, I actually went in and dodged and burned all the little creases and stuff like that to give it more pop. Okay. Make it easier. Name it. Okay. So roots are usually darker on people. So I will go in first with that at 11. Bigger brush and burn that a little bit. Try to avoid the skin. Notice how the light is falling on her hair. Um, you can bring out curls and stuff like that. Waves. You know, just to give it a little bit more pop. Um, some people don't do this, and that's totally fine. I mean, it is a little bit of tedious work, but if you're like me and you enjoy editing, your work, no matter if it's a paying client or not, uh, you'll want to sit here and do this kind of stuff, especially if it's like something that's going to go in your portfolio that's going to be really striking. Same as burning. You want to follow how it is lit, where the highlights are. You don't want to go in and put like in a dark spot a highlight because it won't look right. I mean, you could, but generally you follow the natural path of her hair. Don't want to really go too crazy on like the outside because you are dealing with the background too, which if you do go outside, you can, I don't know if you can see that, I just did that, some haloing. Not something that you want. Oh, I didn't realize her little area right there is all crazy, but it's okay. I think when I edited this, I didn't even do that. I didn't bother with the hair, just the editing of it, not the getting rid of the, the flyaways and stuff. Okay, now with the basics of it down, what you can do is zoom in closer, up the opacity really high, bring down the brush size, and add even more details. Let's see, I'm going to increase the opacity a little bit more. Like little more highlights just here and there that you want to follow the natural hairs line. You know, just give a little bit more depth, a little more pop. You can do that with do this also with a burn layer, but as you see, it's going to be really dark. So with the burn layer, work at 50 or so and under, and work slow with the burn layer. But generally, I like to do dodge because, the highlights really do something and really pops the hair. And you can go back and use a black brush to get rid of it if you want to. Now, I'm not following the hair all the way down because there are dark spots, and I don't want to do that. Oop. And if there are certain areas like this one that's a little bit darker than the top of her hair, just lower the opacity down and go over it. That hair. I think that was where her bangs. Um, especially around like this area. Actually, it's a little bit too much. So I'll go in and lightly do it at 26% opacity. And it is blurry. I was shooting at, I think, f2.8. Generally, when I shoot really wide open, uh, everything's blurred out, so you have to take that in consideration too. Um, because when you dodge and burn, it is going to make it look sharper, I guess you could say. Um, because it's not as shallow in its softness as the bokeh actually is. So, yeah. I mean, the brush size, if you want it softer, you're going to have to, edit with a bigger brush. Normally, I don't. Okay, so there's the hair. Let's see. Go out a little bit. Gonna bring down that a little bit. So it just gives a little pop. So let's see so far. subtle. Very subtle. Okay, I'm happy with this. Okay, so color grading. Color grading, like I said, there's so many things you can do. And the way I like to do it is the selective color layer. There are all these other layers that you can use, but with this one, it has all the colors and the highlights, the mids, and then the blacks or shadows. Each individual one is going to change it differently. And let's say the color ones will change the color ones too. Uh, like red, you can make it greener, or is it cyan? I don't remember. Or yeah, it's cyan. So you can make it redder. It says it right there. You can make it redder, or you can do cyan. You can add magenta or green. Uh, Same with yellow and blue and stuff like that. Um, or you can darken it, brighten it. It just depends on what you want to do. I usually stay away from that. If I'm changing, I'm gonna change the green to a different color. But what I do is go in and start with my blacks first. I always start with blacks just because that's the way that I like to edit. That's like it sets the mood for it for me. Like this whole thing is like lots of green. She's got some redness, in her hair, and stuff like that. Oh, so um, it just depends on how your image is. If it's really overexposed or unexposed, you're gonna have a different time because your histogram or whatever is gonna look different than mine. Yeah, I mean, you might have too much in the shadows, too much in the highlights, and stuff like that. So, when you start out with a basic photo like this, that is correctly exposed and stuff like that, blah blah blah, it's gonna look different. um, yeah, it, you know, it just depends. What I say is try. That's what you need to do is try. Okay, so I'm gonna start over the blacks. When I edit, I always like more blues in my blacks. It's just something I like. Now this, you can see it's adding blues in the blacks, and if you pull it too far over, it's gonna creep into the mids and stuff like that too. And that's not something you want. Okay, so what you want to do is slowly add it. Like that doesn't look bad to me. Maybe a little bit less. What you can do if you do not like the blues and the blacks on her face, there's the mask. Mask it out. Okay? And you can do this with anything, but it is going to change all the tone, so I'll get rid of it on her. Well, actually, I will I'll add it back, and then I will remove it by half. Um, Out of her eyes and her brows. Love it. There you go. And if it's too much blue, you can lower the opacity, to what suits you, what you fancy. Generally, I do not mess with the mids at all, but you can, especially if you're doing like a cinematic color grading or something poppy, something like you want to do a 3D character type thing. You can use the mids and stuff like that. I do not mix the blacks, the whites, the neutrals together in one layer. I will create a new layer, selective color, and I'll go in the whites and I'll do a different color, like Maybe more yellow. That does not look right. I mean, if it's the same color, yeah. So let's see. I will do whites in the black layer. And I'll add a little bit of blue. Maybe a smidge. Okay, and then I will actually go into blacks. Let's see, red. No, that's not something that I want. A little bit more. Well, maybe a little bit. And you can use your mouse wheel to add to the numbers. That looks good to me. Okay. What was this one? Okay, yeah. I will use this one instead for, not just for the whites. Okay, for the greens, same thing. You can go in and change it. And, I don't know if you can see it. Sort of see it, I guess. You can also do it with yellows, because sometimes it pulls it with yellow too. Yeah. um, you'll go in with yellows or greens, depending on what it pulls it as. And do the same thing. Now I'm going to mess around with this. I know when I had edited this, it was sort of like this. Yeah, it was like that. And then what I did was masked it out, excuse me, over her face and stuff like that because I like the blues and stuff like that. Her hair, I liked it on. You can always lower the opacity down. Change the blending mode if you want it, overlay, which really didn't like to be great. You can do soft light, which is better. You can do color, that will just add the color to it. Um, it's not too bad. Or hue, but then that just looks, I don't care for hue too much. I'll go into color, and I'll bring it down. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is, that doesn't look bad to me. I like it. Really think. So far, it looks pretty good. I'm gonna actually bring the blues down a little bit. Where's that? Yeah, I'll bring down the blues a little bit more. Okay, actually bring this down a little bit more too. Okay, now what you want to go do now is, you keep messing around with the colors and stuff like that. Let's see. The reds. That's her hair and some of the background. Turn her into She-Hulk. Now you can change, like, I know people like taking the greens of things and turning it into, like, the fall. You can do that too. You'd want it, you know, more magenta-y and stuff like that when you're dealing with, like, the yellows and the reds. Going like that, making it, like, crazy. A little bit too much. I'm not even looking at her face. I'm just looking at the bushes and stuff like that. Now with this one, I will invert and then I will mask in, not mask out, the color. And I'm going to do it 100% opacity. Crazy big brush. Bring that down. And And I'm just gonna mask that in the certain spots, not all over. And then bring the opacity down. Okay, now, I almost forgot about her eyes. Okay, to make eyes really pop, what you want to do is create a solid layer, white, okay? You do overlay, and then you'll invert it. And you'll want to take, you know, a brush, not the size of her iris or whatever, smaller than that, low opacity, even lower than that, probably about 9. You'll want to go mask in around her eyes. Now you're going to have to understand where your lighting is coming from. If it's high noon, it's going to look different than, say, Rembrandt or loop lighting. Generally, you do not, or you, not generally, you do not want to make the eyes look like an alien. Okay? She looks like she's freaking glowing. Not something you want. With editing the eyes, you want to be subtle. Very, very subtle. That's why we do a really low opacity. Big brush. Try not to go up. Um, you can do multiple layers, like I will do iris for this one. And Retouching Academy actually has this too. Magic Eyes, it does the same thing, but I'll show it like this. Um, you want to go in and just do kind of like a crescent shape slowly, and lower the brush size over her eyes, like that, over the catch light-ish area of her eyes. I do that over here too, and then work on the eye. Now, the reason why you don't want to do the size of her actual iris is because it'll get, in the blacks and stuff like that, and the alien eye, it's something that you don't want. And why I go down in size is because, you know, your eyes catch light completely different than a lot of things. Okay, let's see how that looks. It gives it pop, but it is a little bit too much, okay? So I'm going to lower the opacity all the way down and start bringing it up a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I am going to take a solid color again. I'm going to do black. I'm going to do soft light. Control I. Or you can do luminosity too, but I'll do soft light. Now this one, you're going to use it to darken areas of the eye. Like around her eye, her iris right here, a little bit, the pupil part. And same as the other one, the lighter one, you want a low opacity one. And you want to remember where your light is coming from and stuff like that. And this doesn't look too bad to me. Let's see. Now what you can do is do the same thing again to add more detail to the eye. Like, dang it, why did you do that? Okay. Like the itty bitty little details like that. You can bump up the opacity a little bit more. lower the brush size drastically and just go in and lightly add it. If it's too much, just lower the opacity down. Okay. And you would do this with the black solid color too. Because, because her eyes, I mean, the shot, it's not like a beauty shot. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing this detail because unless you're blowing it up, you're not really gonna see it. You'll see it a little bit, but not too much. And I'll show you whenever I pull it back out. I'll do a black layer. Okay. This one I would actually leave it a little bit lower. Then you'd want to go around. You can do even bigger. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna control or shift click all those and then shift click that and do eyes. Now, if you do like how the blacks are, you can lower it too for like the little lines and stuff like that. But I did it so small that it didn't really, it's not too much. And you can lower the opacity too. See, I'll go out. Okay. 0, 100. You can even bring that down a little bit more. Now also, you can also add light to the eyes. Do the same thing, solid color, white, overlay, or soft light. They both have their merits. Okay. Let's see. Okay. See, overlay, it's kind of, no. I'll do soft light on this one, actually. What? I'll do overlay. Control I with that. Low opacity, bigger brush. A little bigger than that. Maybe add a little here. You can even go in with soft light for the blacks right here. It just depends on how your image looks. I don't know, that's a little bit too much. I mean, it gives the eyes a little pop, but you're not causing her to have alien eyes. Something you don't want. So there we go. There's her eyes done. So it gives it just a little bit, Actually might. Where is, I'm going to increase that a little bit more. Her dodging and burning. There's fine. Okay, now. This stuff done. I'm going to actually do this. What was this one? Yeah, black. Okay. Color grading. What you're not going to want to do is keep flattening layers. That's why you see me constantly having layer after layer after layer in folders. So I can go back and edit, so I can change the opacity and stuff like that. I'm not destructively editing. When you destructively edit, you take away your ability to re-edit things. Some people, are okay with destructively editing. That's fine. That's how they work. Um, with me, that's not something I do. I like having the ability to change things, go back and change things if I want to. It will be bigger file size, yes. Uh, it will take longer to save, yes. Um, and you might hang up on the program depending on how much RAM you have or scratch base and stuff like that. Mine is completely fine. I don't know how other people run things, but my husband built my computer for the sole purpose of editing. So, okay. Sorry, I have to take a drink. Okay, now, what you're gonna do next is go in and what I like to do is the curves. Now, same as the selective color layer and everything else, you want a curves layer, curves adjustment layer. Okay, I go in and set the points right here. I want it to look like that, but I set the points. Now, it does not look bad as it is out of camera, and your situation might be differently. Uh, you might have too much highlights, or the shadows are too deep, and that's just something you're gonna have to tackle. Why I do 3 points is that way I can adjust separately each issue. Um, like I like the shadows how they are, but I want to bring them down just a little bit. And now, what you can do is actually mask afterwards, which I will off of her. And maybe bump up the highlights a little bit, but not too much. Even though we went out and did that, or the mids, you can see it changes like everything crazy and stuff like that. Usually I do an S-curve on things, and I know this looks crazy right now. You can go into luminosity and change that so it doesn't look really drastic. Um, for me right now that looks good, except for on her. I will go in and mask her out. That's, I mean, a given, because that was a little bit too much. And then I'll go in separately for her and add to it. Maybe not, I mean, because she does have the dodging and burning to her, so it looks fine. Her skin on her chest looks fine. You see, it doesn't look too bad. And you can even go in and lower it too. Like that. Okay, that looks good. And then I will create another one. And I will do one midpoint and just bring it down. Um, and then I'll go in soft light maybe, or luminosity. I like soft light. And this one, I will invert the layer mask. Select white, lower the opacity down. This is going to be for the background. Why do I do a separate one? It's just easier than using the other one and masking in, each opacity or whatever. It just makes it easier for me. Now you can get actions and stuff like that do like vignetting or change the, curves to like a specific way, where it looks pretty much perfect. Um, and that's all up to you if you want to use that kind of stuff. I don't. Sometimes I use actions, but not really. Okay, so I'll just go in and start masking certain areas because I want to separate her, but not uh, make it where she looks like she's got a halo around her, or it messes with the color grading. because when you do this kind of stuff, it actually can alter the way the color grading is a little bit. As you can see, like the yellows, which I'll probably actually go in there. That was not too bad. This one, bring it down a little bit more. Maybe actually increase it and make it a little bit more orange. Burnt. Just bring it down a little bit more. My whole plan was for this one to be like brownish, neutral colors and stuff like that. Okay, but yeah, just go in and basically you're burning the area. I guess you could say it's like dodging and burning for the trees and stuff. Uh, her, she's fine. You can, go in and create a gradient, a black gradient, if you want a vignette. I mean, it just depends on you. Do like this, gradient layer, do radial, reverse, scale it. I don't, it's different than doing curves. I mean, you can still do the same thing with the curves just by going around on the corners and stuff like that. And with a vignette, you can do this, like the gradient fill layer. Change the opacity, and then just go in and start masking in where you want it. That way you have that gradation without, it may be going on her. So I'm going to do a little bit like that. So now she really pops out of the background and stuff like that. Might bring that down a little bit more. Okay. Now in the original photo that I had done, I had done a lens flare, and that was basically the same thing as a gradient fill, except for it was linear. So you go in here like this. I don't have like how it was before, but we'll use this one. We'll do white, not blue. White again, and add more colors. So, if it was like golden hour, you can do like an orangey color, something like that, and space it. And then you're gonna do like wherever, like you wanna lower it down. Oh goodness. It was radial. Yeah, it was radial. It was radial angled. I don't normally do that, but yeah. So radial work too. You can go like this. Change the scale a little bit. Add jitter. And now you can go like this and add it. I don't really like that yellow. It's like hideous actually. I'm gonna pull from the background and then like that. Okay, and then you can, scale it a little bit more if you want to, like that, and it'll cause like a fade on her, or you can scale it down and do like just a little itty bitty uh, light in the background like that. So you can change that a little bit too. Something you want to play with because you don't know how you want it. Let's see. That looks good. That actually. Scale a little bit more. Actually, go back to 20. Dang it. 10. Like that. So it's kind of like the sun's there, but it's not there. um, and the blending mode, I like hard light. Soft light is okay too. Overlay is okay, but not really. I like hard light more. That way you can actually drag it around, and you can see, like, this color's not optimal, I don't think. Not for what I am going for. Let's see. There you go. Actually, that looks better. You can mimic the sunset, the sun going down and stuff like that to give little lights, or you can also add these two around should you want to, for, an effect of like adding color, if there's a light there, you need the light, or that it looks like actual light on the subject and stuff like that. You can do that too. Just go ahead and mess with the color grading again. I always second guess myself because I want to make sure that it looks right. Okay. Now, I'm going to do this. Do the adjustments for that. Okay, so far it looks like this. After and before. It's not too much of a difference, but you can see just the difference in color grading does. Adding certain things here and there. And you can always go back in if you're not destructive at editing and change anything that you want. Say, you don't like this color grading. Cool. Get rid of the color grading. Say you want to do a color lookup. These are actually really fun to mess with. You'd want it on 3D LUT file, whatever. And you can change these two, and they'll each give a different look. And some of them might work out with your photo, some of them might not. It all depends. Let's see if there's any good looking ones. Like that one's really cool. And you can go in even with this and just add it lightly. Give it a bluey matte type thing if you wanted to. Yeah, none of them I really care for. And just like, the color, the other ones too. Channel mixer. It will go for each channel. You can do this in curves too. I'll add a curves layer too. It has RGB, but it also has red, green, and blue. You can select the points and that too. You can add more red to the highlights, add more green or cyan, whatever, to the highlights. Or same with the shadows. Same with blues and stuff like that. You can add more blues, yellow. It just depends. I mean, there's so many different ways like that. That's curves. Channel mixer is like the same way. It's just broader. It's not like curves too much, but it's like a broader one. The color balance does the same thing based on the shadows, the mids, and the highlights. So for highlights, if you wanted to add more cyan, you could. It again is broad, but it does basically the same thing. But I personally like the selective color. You can also do a gradient map, which that looks crazy. That'll do it too, sort of, but you're not. I mean, you're adjusting the color based on what you want. So, I mean, that works great for black and whites, but I like the color grading that I did. Okay, now I'm gonna actually go in maybe another curves layer. Let's see. Bring that down. I always never do it right. Maybe add a little bit more. Bring this down a little bit more. Do luminosity. Luminosity will affect the lighting. It will not affect the color. Not too much, actually. Not too bad, but I'll bring this down. Like that. I mean, it's not too bad. Now, with another curves layer. I have been asked how, like, I'm gonna do actually a black and white to show you. I'll just do this. Let's see. I don't know which one I like. Because I usually go in and Camera Raw and do it. Actually, the blue. What was the red one? No, I'll do blue filter. Okay. I have been asked how to do this. Actually, how was Hiker? No, God, no. You can adjust these too. You know, how to matte my blacks. Okay. I'm gonna put this under an additional curves layer just to show. You can do 3 points or 2. What I like to do is keep my shadows here. Maybe drop it down a little bit. Okay. And not too much. Let's see. Like that. Now, there's this point all the way at the shadow part of the histogram. This is your shadows, this is your highlights. What you can do is take this point all the way down here and drag it up. It will essentially matte it, if you will. And you can also adjust this point again, depending on how dark you want to go and stuff like that. You know, if you keep going, it's gonna look like this. And that's not something you want. So when you do this, you just do it a little bit, and you can also pull it like this, and it'll make it deeper, and it'll start going way into the shadows and stuff like that. And like you can see here, like there is banding because of it. Well, not too bad, but you can see right there, there's banding because of it. That's something when you go this way that you have to be very careful about, even with this. Now this can sometimes fix banding. It just depends on the photo that you're doing. But if I were to do this in black and white, yeah, I'd do something like that. But I don't want it in black and white, so right now like this, I'm going to see actually with this curves how it look. Nope, 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 nope. Let's see, I'm going to go mess with the color grading again. I always mess with color grading. Okay, I mean, it's not too bad. This is similar to what I ended up with when I was done with it originally. I think I went in and edited her skin a little bit more, so it's not so warm and stuff like that. Added some color to her lips. But yeah, basically, this is it. Um, Now this, what I will do now is Control Alt Shift E, and I'll create a stamp layer of it, and I will go in, because I do not like banding, because there's going to be some banding because of the curves and the color grading and stuff like that, because there's so many different colors in there. I will go in and add noise. I will always add noise. I just like noise on there, and I will usually do 1. It's subtle. You can see it, but not too much. Okay. Um, Now, yes, I like that. Now I will, because I like this, uh, let's see about the crop. I usually do 4:6, and you can see right there she's already fine. Mine is in golden ratio. Mine is always like that. Uh, just crop it just a little bit. Okay. Now this is when I will flatten the image. Actually, I'll cancel that. I will merge visible because it'll make it easier so you can see the result. Um, Now I will go in and duplicate the merge layers, filter, other, high pass. Now this, actually I'm going to zoom in. This is tricky. Depending on if you're editing in 8-bit or 16-bit, your number is going to be different. Also, the size of the file that you're doing. With a full size file like this, I shoot a Nikon D600. I have no issues doing this number. So what you're going to want to do, this is to sharpen it. So what you're going to do is go in other high pass with the duplicated layer. Now I usually do 1. You can see the details similarly to the texture layer when we did frequency separation. On her hair and stuff like that, it pulls out the details. Now I'm going to do it like that because I like 1. Okay, so then I will do that, and I will either do overlay, linear light. Sometimes it looks good. I mean, right now, yeah, it looks really good. And you'll want to go in and lower the opacity down, depending on your shot. Okay. Okay, I like that. That looks good. Then I will go in, image size. Actually, I will merge these layers again. And then I will image size. These I don't really mess with. But the width, or the longest side, whatever your longest side is, 2048 is the best for Facebook and stuff like that. Some people also do, I think it's 960, and that looks good too. It just depends on, what you're really doing. I like it larger. So yeah. You want to constrain, proportion, scale styles, resample. I do automatic because it's just easier for me. Um, so yep. So I resize it down to 2048. It's 100%. Okay. Now I will duplicate the layer again. Go back in. Filter. Other. High pass. Now 1 is going to be way too much. So you're going to want to go in and just barely see it. So 3 is too much. 2 is fine. Apply. Overlay. Linear light. Yeah, that looks good. It's to 100%. Now, what you want to worry about is haloing or artifacts from doing over sharpening and stuff like that. You don't want to over sharpen your image. You want to make it sharp. And you can also do like at the beginning too, or not the beginning of the sharpening. You can actually mask in over like the eyes, like right here. Let's see. I'll go higher than that. I'll mask it in. That way I go just do the detail shots like her eyes, her hair, her lips. Not too much. Her eyebrows, her cheeks, because that's almost on the same plane as her eyes, pretty much. Sometimes they get blurred out depending on what you're shooting at and stuff like that. Um, see, I did it at 55%. Sorry, it's 5:35 now. That's at 31%. So there we go. Let's see. Actual pixels. So that's it at 100% and 100% and varied opacity. It just barely, you can just barely see it. And then what I will do, ah, damn thing, my recording thing is in the way. Uh, Control save, and then I don't do save by web. Sometimes I do, but not all the time. I could do Control plus S to save it, and I save it as a PNG every single time. And then I will do none, and then interlaced. I'm weird. Yep, save it. It will be really large. That's just what I like. Um, but there you go. Any questions? Feel free to ask. You know, if you want to try different things, I implore you to try different things. There are so many ways to color grade things, you know. You don't have to have blues in your blacks. You don't have to have, you know, the greens turn fall. Um, there are just so many ways that you can do things, masking things out, you know, and everybody edits differently. Everybody wants things to look differently. Now, I don't do the blurring like some photographers do, where they'll blur the background. Um, there are only certain ways that you can do it that makes it look natural, like an actual shallow depth of field. Um, One way would be to use a gradient on the layer mask, and you'd go in and do filter, blur, lens blur, and change it that way. There's ways that you can look that up and see it, but I don't do that. Um, you know, and also changing like the color of the greens to like a blue color. Uh, you can do that too. I mean, there's just so many different ways. But this is just the way that I edit this, especially this photo. This is like the coloring that I wanted for this photo. Oh, yeah. So you'll see after, before. So it's a change, but not too much. And I know I was gonna do liquefy and stuff like that, but she doesn't need it. I mean, in the one I did a little bit on her neck and shoulders and stuff like that because she's kind of slouchy and stuff. But yeah, I don't think she needs it. But you can see, I mean, you know, even small, you can see the changes in her skin texture and her face with the dodging and burning and stuff like that, and her hair. Well, yeah, any questions? Let me know.